Folks, one of the chillingest things that I got to bring to you is the fact that as I watch market by market, I'm seeing Florida inventory, homes for sale at much higher levels than compared to other markets. Now, folks, this wouldn't be so bad, but rising supply in the face of historically low demand is and can be disastrous for asking prices and home values. Now, folks, I did a bombshell video 1 week from today that home builders have already reduced their known prices in the public view by 12%. This is a known average. Folks, I showed you in detail how builders are then further discounting the price in hiding, and homeowners in Florida that bought new construction neighborhoods have homes being sold near them at 50 to 150 grand less than what they paid for their home just in recent months or even the last couple of years from the time the builders now liquidating these homes in our state. And again, I'm not pointing this as something unethical, but I'm saying that most people that are in Florida that have their home for sale are not clearly aware of just how many headwinds are in the marketplace right now for the buyer. Now, folks, we have record amount of cancellations taking place. Thousands of homes go under contract, and what happens is when the buyer then runs the numbers on the home they're purchasing with their lender, they end up finding they cannot afford the house and they cancel the sale. Folks, another crazy thing that I'm seeing that nobody is picking up on in the marketplace is that a lot of areas that have incredibly high inventory levels are people on fixed income. They're people that don't actually have mortgages at high percentage in these areas, but they're unfortunately so buried under the cost of living in Florida that they're forced to sell the house. I'm gonna show you clear examples on this video. So buyers are coming in, stressed out, and canceling sales because when they find property taxes are much higher than they anticipated, when they find out their housing insurance bill could be $6,000 to $10,000 a year, the sale is broken and the seller is going back to the drawing board. And at the same time, sellers are competing with more sellers than at any point we've seen in the past 4 years. But what concerns me the most is I'm gonna show you the national graph for existing homes. You're gonna see that across the US, there's still a lower statistical amount of homes for sale than back in 2019 before the pandemic. So even while 7.4, 7.5% interest rates absolutely suffocate buyers throughout the US, you gotta understand that in the major Florida markets, there isn't the protection of our local markets of having less inventory than pre-pandemic. It's like level or worse. What I'm saying is that all throughout the country, the only thing really not tipping prices much faster is there is 40% less homes across the market for sale now than there was pre-pandemic. Less buyer demand, but also less supply. If supply ticks up with low buyer demand, prices get hammered. But folks, what's really detrimental is this. You have a soured bargaining table. The buyer comes to the table and says, yuck, I don't like it. It's too much, it's too costly. Historically, prices are too high to consider this interest rate, to consider this record high insurance, to consider this record high HOA cost, and they bail. But at the same time, you've got a sour deal on the seller side where they no longer can afford to maintain their house. They are forced into a sale because their HOA got ridiculously expensive. They bought a new house and then they got slammed with high property tax. Or third, they know their insurance is through the roof already and it's only gonna get worse in 2024 before it can possibly get better. So as the inventory in Florida starts to go to epic levels, enter the next wave of supply coming from broken landlords who can't afford to keep their homes anymore because of the insurance, because of the taxes, crushing them to where they're not making money anymore. And yes, that includes the big Wall Street guys. But now you've got that remote worker who are living their beach lifestyle, clocking in from work with their toes in the sand, that are now representing more than 10% of all home sales, folks, as we see unemployment in 2024 not only making wages lower, but also giving employers the upper hand and requiring these employees to come back to work, which is what they've secretly wanted, but have been handcuffed to enforce up till now. But allow me to add one more piece of breaking news as we jump into the data. The country's top survey for chief financial officers just came out. CNBC reported that our top financial officers that are running the numbers and the financial data for the top countries in America are saying they do not believe inflation will be under the 2% target at any time next year. An overwhelming majority of them are suggesting against the value of their own stock that in all likelihood, we have not seen the end of rate hikes from Jerome Powell and from the Fed. It is evident that we are going into recession. That is another point that they agreed on. And folks, we all know, even though they're not directly tied together, that as Jerome Powell raises the Fed interest rate some more, there's a very good chance that we have interest rates hitting 8% or possibly 8% plus in a marketplace that is dramatically, it's arguably beyond favoring the buyer now, folks. It's going to be a recipe for softening prices as you see more of the motivated sellers surfacing from all of these pain points that I just described. But let me show you specific evidence of these things and specific marketplaces to watch if you're considering buying in Florida or you're considering selling, because this is majorly important that you know if you're in a market where the odds are dramatically stacked against you. And I know I appreciate you watching this long monologue, but it's important for you to know these details. Smash the like button as we smash into the data. Let's get going.
Change is coming, my fellow Americans. You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Now, many owners feel the squeeze of HOA. Look at this comment posted on my channel this week. One of the largest 55 communities in Delray, Kings Point, just raised its HOA to $1,000. Lots of elderly on a fixed income at their HOA meeting. An elderly woman started crying because she won't be able to afford food. The residents started clapping for her, and the woman on the HOA board said that everybody who was clapping could help her pay for food. Folks, this is the interesting thing. You're going to see this even in areas like Naples and the Villages in Florida, where you have super high amount of cash owners. A lot of these cash owners, yes, their house is paid off, they don't have a mortgage, but they're elderly folks and they can't afford the carrying cost even without the mortgage, and they're dumping their houses. And I was most careful to review this on the southwest edge of Florida. A lot of those communities are elderly and have no mortgages, and they're trying to get out of their houses, and there's not buyers for them. What does Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and California have in common? Why did they go so nuts last time? Right here at the bottom, investor Ponzi, just like in the GFC, loves a good game of investor musical chairs, meaning that a lot of our appreciation that just happened over the past 2 years was investor buys a house for X. Then he sells it to another guy who's an investor who does something to the house and sells it to another investor. And you've seen it probably on other channels like Michael Berdero and some of these other guys that are out there. They're showing houses that are literally traded like a Ponzi scheme over and over. But the music, my friends, has stopped. Investor activity, like many parts of the country, has absolutely plummeted. And that's what causes these things to spiral like they are. Now, folks, all the other logical pain markers like refinances and home equity lines, borrowers having to max out their credit cards at 28% interest, they all point to one thing. People cannot afford to make ends meet. Enter the next story that just blew the lid off from Fidelity. That's 401k balances shrank in the latest quarter as more Americans took hardship withdrawals. Look at this. Fidelity Group found that nearly 5% over the last 2 quarters drained their 401ks in order to gain what's called a hardship draw or withdrawal. Now, they found that the typical 401k dropped $5,000. Now, folks, listen to this. They did a measure between now and 2018. The reason why they picked 2018, it was pre-pandemic. And they did a comparison, and the amount of people in the past year that have been pulling out their 401k has shot up by 300%. Now, check this out. I was curious how this whole thing works. So I actually found their financial hardship distribution form, and on it, look what it says right up top. You can only take a distribution if you meet one criteria for eligibility. I'm interested. Let's see what section 3 says. Purchase of your principal residence. Well, we know from the data, it's definitely not that. Down here at the bottom, federal emergency management, like a FEMA disaster, a medical expense, a funeral expense, pay tuition, repairs to your principal residence. Well, according to Home Depot, it's not that either. Wait, what is this second one? Prevent foreclosure on or an eviction from your principal residence. So folks, you circle all this up and you can see that hardships are evident. Now, under the next story, return to work is coming for your pandemic era home, where they cite a report by Redfin in September that about 10% of US sellers are looking to move because of the forced return to work. Now, folks, last Sunday, I outlined how many major CEOs in America are saying prices are dropping, prices are dropping. I took that a step further to show you, hey, look, this is going to increase unemployment, which is undeniable. It's already climbing, including states like Florida. Now, folks, listen to this. I had lunch this week with someone who's on the corporate team of a major business that's based in Orlando. If I were to start naming the brands associated with this company, you'd know who they were. And I asked them, I said, hey, is remote working still going on? They said, yes. We probably come to work 2 or 3 days a week. I said, hey, if all things went perfect for this company, do you think that that's their preference for their workforce, or they just have to do it? And the person said, absolutely not. If it was up to them, we'd all be back to work tomorrow. but they have to do it to be competitive was the answer. Now, folks, here's the deal. I think that employers were cuffed to have to do this. And I think this person's story extrapolates further on. I think that this is probably true for most companies, but you got to understand if you have layoffs starting to tick up, not only are you going to have wages come down, but you're also going to have employers forcing more people to terms that the employer wants. So while you have 10% of the moving inventories in America, I've been saying this a long time, folks, I absolutely think this is coming. Now look at this, folks. If you look at the turnover pre-pandemic, so January 19th till now, the entire US is still 40% below. But where is Florida? And this is the danger, folks. If you've got serious pain, if you've got a seller that can't hang on, if you've got a buyer who can't afford it, you have way less transaction volume. There's nothing wrong with this, okay? If you have way less business to do and you for sure don't have as many buyers as you have back here when the national supply of inventory was like 950,000 homes. But when it's way, way down here at 567,000, you're in less danger that all these buyers can't afford to buy the house and that sellers might be itching to get out. You have less transactional volume, but Florida is not the case. And here's the deal. Any of these areas where you see inventory troughing back to where it was, I pulled up the city of Cape Coral, the area you saw the biggest slide on price the last time we had the great financial collapse. Look at this. All year, just like the rest of the country, it's going straight up. It caught pre-pandemic levels with way less buyer interest. Look at Punta Gorda, folks. If you got a home there, price it right. Well past pre-pandemic 2019. Deltona, Daytona Beach, MSA, about 10 to 15% away from its running average. Now, folks, Naples was really like the Miami of the West Coast. The Southwest Coast started to spike inventory faster than anywhere else in the state of Florida, particularly the Cape Coral, Northport, Port Charlotte, MSA. But Naples has long been resistant. But folks, it's got 3 months running where the inventory is starting to spike there. Ocala, way up on inventory and has a lot of new construction competition going against it. A couple panhandle updates. I've been telling you, Pensacola and Panama City, way back above 2019 levels or right at it. Look at the villages running inventory that it's only seen 3 other times in a 4-year span. The Central Florida market, not as tight as Miami and Naples, but look at this, folks, starting to make its 4-month run. Orlando looks similar to this and it's well under its 2019 number. And the Miami MSA making news, it starts to climb, particularly West Palm Beach. We know seeing their inventory coming up. But folks, look at this. Why did buyers pull out? And why is inventory going up? Why are prices coming down? Well, right in front of you is a 30-year graph. You can see the 7% mark is just above this red line. Back here in June, there was a temporary bump. It went down below the line and then it stayed that way for about 5 months now. And it's simple mathematics in the housing market, oldest time, folks. When people's earnings cannot afford them these houses, all bets are off. The buyers plow the market. Now, you can see the yellow line. The yellow line is indicative of how this went last year, the same period of time. So the yellow line actually stayed well beneath what we saw interest rates do in the past couple months. And folks, we saw last year that even this yellow line tracking beneath this year, we had a 12% average price drop between the summer and the end of last year. And folks, unfortunately, Florida is leading the way. Inventory across Florida is spiking in the resale sector, which, as I told you, if it's happening right now, it's purely a story of people in pain. People can't hold on to the house any longer. But folks, guess what is brewing for 2024? On the opposite side of the coin, you have builders loading the cannons anew to really blast a lot of new inventory into next year. Now, folks, the story for the builders that over the past 3 to 5 months, if you watch CNBC, builders were licking their chops saying, we are going to do well in this marketplace in low inventory. And so builders have seen it another way. Look at this. Folks, look from 2015 to 2020. Look how the level, this green line you see in the middle, this is the level of permitting for Orlando, Florida for single family houses. So you saw last fall, prices started to dump. Builders got nervous. They stopped pulling permits. But look at this. I told you 3 or 4 months ago, builders felt strong. They started pulling permits again. So they're starting a 10-month or a 1-year process of pulling permits into 2024 to bring inventory into Orlando. Now, folks, you got to understand, they've got a ton in the marketplace already. They got to sell still. Now, the yellow line is total permits. We're looking at Tampa. You can see the residential in Tampa dropped similarly, but it spiked back up. You can see the green line that residential housing in Tampa was falling for several months straight, and then it hit its bottom and started to come back. Builders are being a lot more conservative, so it's going to be fortunate for the owners there. Look at Northport, really kind of held 7,000 to 8,000 permits, but it's growing again, folks, and its multifamily is also high there. Look at Cape Coral. You can see it peaked somewhere back here in 2021. It came down, but it's going back up again for total permits. Same thing with residential. Folks, I saw this trend about a week and a half ago. I was looking at permits again. I was looking at New York and Chicago and Jersey and different areas throughout the country, and I saw the builders virtually everywhere. I started scratching my head saying, what are they doing? Why would they start pulling more in the face of such weak buyer demand? That's it for this week's video, and I want to stop and just thank all of you for the crazy support of this channel lately. I've got a great video planned for Sunday, a lot of data to point to 5 of the riskiest housing markets across the US. And I'm in stunned awe, particularly over these markets, almost like a person driving by a bad car accident. But it's important that you know what's going on in the marketplace, and it's my goal to keep you informed. At the time of this video, I'm probably just crossing 30,000 subscribers. If you've been left out and you want to be a part of the ongoing narrative of real estate across Florida and throughout the US, consider subscribing to the channel. And at the very least, if you've listened this far, smash the thumbs up. It'd mean a great deal. And let's continue the conversation in the comments below. That's it for this update. We'll talk to you on the next one.